Welcome back, everybody. All right, you've been writing to us on at Morning Live SABC. That's, of course, on our X handle. Let's put a couple of them up and read what you are saying. So this was the question as we mark 70 years since women marched for freedom in South Africa. What are your thoughts on women's leadership representation in corporate roles? So here we go. Let's read them. So first up, the one we've got is from Shorty. And Shorty saying, Morning Live team. Representation of women in corporate leadership has improved, with women holding 29% of C-suite positions globally. To achieve more women, we need to support each other. That's Shorty. Then Sidwell writing to us as well, saying leadership roles for women in the corporate world is minimal, and the only solution to this is for business owners to have trust in women and have a hand in their appointment on merit. Otherwise, men will keep the status quo as it is. And then let me just take this one. Collins saying, unfortunately, nothing positive can be said regarding the treatment of women as far as leadership roles are concerned within the 114th year movement, where the suppression is palpable. The latest example is the Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, who's being intimidated with court for revealing the truth. All right, those are just a couple of comments. There's a lot more where those came from. Join the conversation if you would like to, and please visit our X page, and we'll try and squeeze a few more of those as the broadcast carries on. So important issues brought up and echoed through what you're saying out there on social media as to what's being discussed here in our discussion. And before the break, I was asking myself what I would change so that the future generation ahead of me doesn't have to wait 100 years plus to begin to see equality and to begin to see mass change, because it's too slow. It is far too slow. So I'm still thinking about it. I'm going to throw it to you. Chair, I'm making you answer that question. In the capacity of you as the chair, what are you going to change? What are you going to make different so that we don't have to wait all these years to make things happen? In fact, what is it something that you can institute now to make change?
Thank you, Leanne. You see, we stand on the shoulders of great women. The 20,000 women that marched in 1956 were not a representative of 20,000 women. They were a representative of the millions of South African women. So that's my basis when I think about this issue. What did they have from a quality perspective that's going to inform what we can do? It was unwavering commitment, dignity, which we mentioned earlier, but also service, selflessness, and service for the rest of the country. If we have that as a basis, we can dream big, and we can design interventions that are big, that are going to be impactful. So corporately, in a corporate, what does leadership have to do? Leadership has to use those qualities. And what did I say? Unwavering commitment, tenacity. We have to use those examples, and we have to put in measures in corporate. This is what can be done. Yeah. I'm very sure that it can be done. We put in, as I say, the policies and measures in corporate, and we measure them. Because what gets done is what gets measured. Yeah. And we measure them. But we take the whole of society along. This is not a woman's problem. This is a problem for society. This is a challenge to society. So we take everybody along, and you measure. At a leadership level, all executives will be measured in terms of the implementation of the policies that we've put in place. If you can replicate that, if we can replicate that throughout the different organizations, you are able to touch society even outside of your, let's say, your working hours. You're able to touch society, and what you require is you require unity of purpose. So it's not just corporates. Corporates have to be in partnership with the non-governmental organizations. They have to be in partnership with government, as it were, all the government spheres that have put, I mean, the policies are there already. You need unity in purpose to be able to make sure that children or the generation or our daughters are not going to go through the battles that all the women sitting here and most women out in South Africa have had to go through in terms of societal battles and also in corporate. It's not automatically, and I'm going to probably sound like a broken record, yeah, but you've got to have unity in purpose in the implementation of all these issues. And one thing we mustn't forget is that it takes time. Yeah. We saw that 70 years ago they marched. Here we are still complaining about some of the same things, but we have made some progress. The progress is not remarkable, there has been some progress. How do we accelerate it? Everybody has to be focused on the implementation, and people need to be performance managed to be able to ensure that those initiatives that have been put in are being implemented, and we start right from the beginning. Not from, by the time young girls have been have gone through the school system, less of them are at STEM than they were when they started off.
Yeah.
So we've got to start from the beginning and make sure that it's a cohesive initiative that gets implemented all over.
It is, and where do these young girls disappear to? And that's the question that remains unanswered for a long time. And we need to bring them in. We need to protect them. And I'm going to ask you the same thing, because it is important. It's things that we need to change right now. It's something. These things are possible. It's not an impossibility, because with your positions comes a lot of power, and these are things that need to be implemented. And you need to stand for something. And to know that, you know, somebody fought for you to be sitting there. You need to fight for more to be in the same positions. What is it that you can change?
So for me, I'm trying to make a change currently. Our company is triple BEE compliant. Also, when I interview the younger individuals, I try and see, okay, how are we going to make a space for them in the industry? When we interview them, this person has potential. What do we do to mentor them, to bring them in? How do we pull out a chair for them at the boardroom table? I once went to a conference and I heard the story of us as ladies. When we are young and we're little girls and we're playing with a doll, we never ever want to give the next lady a chance. But with boys, they would ride a bike and then they would give the next boy a chance very quickly. So I think that story resonates, because us as women, we need to stand in unity. I want to create a legacy for my girls at home, or the younger individuals in our engineering company. And then also in terms of our management team, how do we transform them into those management roles? So currently, we are a lot of women on the management spectrum in our industry, and we got women in our workshop, so we're really trying to uplift them and send them on training courses to uplift their skills, rather.
Okay, so that's something that's happening.
Yeah.
On your side, something?
I think if we look at a woman, we have to understand that the woman has different shifts. You have a home or family shift that is very demanding. There's a partner shift, you know, like job. And then there is your corporate job. And if we don't look at this holistically, I don't think we will really understand what women are facing every day. And that's why corporates play a huge role, but they are going to have to just erase that kind of line that's 9 to 5 and understand that we have to have flexibility without a penalty for flexibility. Yeah. Have it as outcomes-based, because the outcome will be reached. And there's a lot of other items, but if you look back on society and even how we see women at home, is I am no CEO at home. You know, nobody respects you when you work from home. You have to solve all those challenges. So definitely the wider society has to come to the party, families, our cultures, our gender roles that we have to be boxed in has to be erased. Yeah. Otherwise, we really have too many challenges on each of the fronts and at each of our shifts that we have to fulfill.
Yeah. Nomsa?
I think we have to continue the good fight. We really have to continue breaking barriers and building legacies. And what I mean by that is we sit here today and we talk about the women that we followed, the women that marched, the women that were the first to walk into boardrooms. But I think what's important is that we need to realize that, you know, why we sit here without proper transformation is because it was okay to be the only woman in the room. And that's the mistake that was made, because it was as if you've got one woman around the table, you've done your job. When in fact, we changed by having more women at the table. So we changed by having a collective. Because let's be honest, if you're the only woman around the table, it's a lonely place to be, because decisions are made without you. The board meeting happens before the board meeting, and you are not a part of it. And when there's more of you around the table, there's more voices, there's more diversity. So for me, that's what's important, is that we need to break those barriers, and we need to create a culture of succession. And that culture, for me, is not just creating a succession culture for a CEO, for executives. It's across every level of an institution that you really have to be deliberate about creating that. And the reality is that we know from the data that we have access to that young girls are doing very well at school. They're performing. If you look at universities, you know, they're not there simply to warm up seats. They graduate at the top of their classes, and then something goes very wrong. And I think we need to look at ourselves as women and say that, now that we've got this seat at the table, what have we done with it? Because for a very long time, we've been measuring representation. But what we need to ask ourselves is, what influence have we exercised in order to ensure that the corporate world becomes a better place, because we are now in it? And I think that's something we really need to ask ourselves. How many women have I brought through because I was here? How many opportunities did I create? Because that's what it is. Because earlier on I spoke about sponsorship. Because I think a lot of us will talk about women we mentor. That's an amazing exercise. But how many do we really sponsor? How many times do we walk into a room and say, you know, I know Moni, and she's capable of this and this and that. We walk into rooms where they are not there, and we are their voices, and we are deliberate about it. So for me, that's what's important, in a sense that we should not be gatekeepers, because unfortunately, Leanne, as women, we have become gatekeepers. We've played a role in maintaining, the patriarchy.
I agree. I agree, and I'm agreeing with everything you're saying. I'm shaking my head, and I'm thinking of the little girls not wanting to share their dolls, and because there are too few dolls to go around. And there's where the problem lies, is that you get through that door, you sit at that chair, you look around, you know there's only one, and then you think, oh, I better just do everything to protect it. And that shouldn't be the way that it is. It shouldn't. It should be shared. It should be happening. And again, you and I were chatting off air, and this is an important aspect that I want to bring in, is that as much as we're sitting here as women that are occupying the chairs, I can almost guarantee, and we spoke about this, that every single one of us had a male mentor. You know, we talk about female mentors, but I can assure most of the people watching at home and that are sitting here, I speak for myself, that I learned a lot from the men that came before me, and that gave me a lot more insight. Yes, we need women mentors, we do. It's important because we offer so much that we can open up, we can do things. But men do hold the strings, they still do. What do? Are we isolating ourselves by just having us women speaking about our problems together? Do we need to involve men more in this? Do we need to force men to actually say, right, I'm going to have this as a female mentor, and I'm going to teach her what I know?
Yeah, absolutely, Leanne. And before I get to mentorship versus sponsorship, right? Mentorship, and I think as women, we are wired differently socially. So when we do sit around, when you get that mentoring from another female exec that's walked the journey before you, it really encourages you on the inside, and you feel hopeful that I can do it as well. But male sponsorship is critical for progression. Male sponsorship is the male CEOs, the male chairs, the male executives that identifies potential. Sometimes potential is not demonstrated experience. Oh, she's done it for 10, 15, 20 years. But it's the potential, the resilience that they can pick up in women and leapfrog forward to say, I'm going to take a chance on this woman's career. I'm going to take a chance, and I'm going to give her the opportunity to take on roles. And when you do give them the chance, a sponsor is not necessarily someone that you are going to tap on for every hurdle, right? But they are the ones in the pre-board meetings, in the golf course, or these days paddle or cycling, when conversations come up about who's in the succession pipeline, that they can identify females with potential. And I was thinking about your question before we went into sponsorship and mentorship, and I was thinking, what do we do for the next generation of women? And I was thinking about 11, 12 years ago, my 8-year-old at the time, and my son was probably 12-ish, they came home from school, And it was careers day at school. And my son, I was like, so what do you want to be when you grow up? And he's like, I want to be a hip hop artist, as most boys would be. And I asked my daughter, and you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she said, I want to be the president of the USA. Now, interesting, at the time, it was the presidential campaign in the USA. And my son looked at her and he's like, you're not even American. And she looked so disappointed. And I thought to myself in that moment as a mom and as an executive, what happened to that 8-year-old in us as females, where we believed we could do anything, right? And as we make our way through life, as we make our way through careers, as we make our way through relationships, somehow that hope is stifled. And when we look at roles in corporate and the JSE and the handful of female CEOs, it almost becomes hopeless. Like, why should I put in the cost and the sacrifice? Because whether we want to accept it or not, holding a C-suite role, holding an executive role, comes with immense cost and sacrifice. I've seen it in my research. I've seen it in my own personal journey. And then the question we find is, what happens to women? And the answer is women opt out. Women opt out and they decide, you know what, the cost and the sacrifice is too much. So my encouragement to young women is don't give up. What you need to do in moments when you are not feeling quite equipped, quite secure about yourself, is surround yourself with people that will support you. Because the journey to the top for the woman that marched 70 years ago is not going to be easy. And what we are trying to shift is not just a dynamic in South Africa, but it's a global phenomenon that women is actually not making it into these corporate roles.
It's such a powerful note, and I want to carry on because we haven't even touched on issues, whether we talk about gender-based violence, the lack of education, the challenges that women do go through, and never really ever getting there. And also, we're painting a picture of a certain kind of woman that's going to succeed, one that can speak beautifully in English, that can come into a boardroom, that has these educations, that is able-bodied, all of these kind of things. There are a lot of challenges that stand in the way for women, but we cannot deny that we are moving forward, albeit not fast enough. And I don't know how to thank each one of you. I just wish I could continue, but as we say, sponsorships, we've got to pay the bills here so that we can all keep on working. But it's been amazing chatting to you, and I thank you so much for being a part of this fourth panel discussion that we've had, focusing in on women as we lead towards Women's Day that is on Sunday, the 9th of August. And these are just a few. This is just a talking point. It's a conversation. If we've reached one of you, then we've done something good. We've done something good, and that is what we need to do. However, policies need to change, and they need to change quickly so that we don't have to wait many more decades to see women progress and actually look up and say, I can be the president because I see an African female president here in South Africa. Who knows?